think I came here 2 days before camp started. And it was just a hard time. When I look back to last year, it was like I'm just trying to get through the year pretty much and just find something positive, try to find some momentum and get myself going. But I just feel way, way better coming into this year.
Yeah, I feel like last year we felt like we were all over the place. This year we have a little bit more time to be prepared. It's kind of hard from January to April to prepare your team to go and compete in the playoffs, which I think he did a very, very good job. But now he has his full coaching staff. He's kind of like put his identity throughout the whole team. So I'm excited. I'm excited to start camp. I'm excited to see where this is going to take us.
Nobody's like talking about us, right? Nobody mentions us about championships. Nobody mentions us about Christmas. Nobody says anything about the Bucks, right? So we'll just see when the season comes, and we're not cocky or nothing. We're humble with everything we do. We just want to let the work, man, and grind, and be good at what we do, man. It's gonna be a great season. I love our confidence. I love the vibe, right? Like the vibe hasn't been this good in years, and it's kind of good to have this type of vibe going into a regular season that means so much to all of us.
Following a disastrous 2023-24 campaign, the Milwaukee Bucks seem to have a new sense of identity heading into the upcoming 2024-25 season. Dame and Giannis have a full year of experience playing together to build from. The front office upgraded the roster with very little financial flexibility through the acquisitions of Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, and DeLon Wright, and most importantly, the Bucks underwent an entire offseason and training camp with Doc Rivers at the helm, which is absolutely vital to the development of this team. Because if you think back to last year, the Bucks went through a full training camp and 43 games under rookie head coach Adrian Griffin and his coaching staff before Doc Rivers took over midway through the season, meaning Rivers had to adjust his staff and build relationships within the organization on the fly, all while trying to fix Milwaukee's defensive issues without having to reinvent the wheel in the midst of a contending season, which is a lot to juggle, especially when you consider the fact that Griffin had struggled to incorporate the newly acquired Damian Lillard within Milwaukee's offense, which posed yet another hurdle for Doc Rivers to leap. But because he took over at such an inopportune time, Rivers could only make minimal changes to the Bucks' identity on both sides of the floor. And when you combine this with floundering team chemistry and a slew of injuries at the worst possible time, it culminated in a first-round exit for the Bucks. But now, with a full offseason under his belt, Rivers was able to go out and build the coaching staff his way, as he added both Darvin Ham and Greg Buckner to his core of 5 returning assistants. And the cool thing about those 2 hirings in particular is the unique experience that each coach provides the team with. And speaking of unique experiences, today's video is sponsored by, well, me, as I've decided to launch the Antler Enthusiast membership right here on YouTube. As an Antler Enthusiast, you gain unrivaled access to my scouting report work for all 82 games, plus the playoffs. So if you want a full breakdown for each matchup, become a member, and enjoy scouting reports 24 hours before every game. But getting back to Doc's new hires, in Darvin Ham's case, he returns to Milwaukee after serving 2 seasons as the Lakers head coach. Prior to his time in LA though, Ham spent 4 seasons from 2018 to 2022 in Milwaukee under coach Mike Budenholzer, meaning he was a part of the team's title run in 2021. And the relationships he built with the players during that time played an instrumental role in the team's success. Because following his departure for the Lakers in 2022, the Bucks went on to fall in the first round of the 2023 playoffs to the 8th seeded Miami Heat, despite having the best record in the entire league. And while the media was quick to start a panic over this, Bobby Portis promptly reminded the world of D-Ham's impact in Milwaukee. As for Greg Buckner, He spent the past 4 seasons in Cleveland as an assistant to JB Bickerstaff for 2 of them before being promoted to associate head coach to begin the 2022-23 campaign. And while Ham was brought on for the relationships he built during his time in Milwaukee, Buckner was brought on to help fix this team's biggest weakness, their defensive identity, which was seemingly lost under Adrian Griffin, because in 4 out of the 5 seasons Mike Budenholzer was at the controls, the Bucks ranked top 10 in defensive rating, with 3 of those seasons even ranking in the top 5. So where did Coach Griff go so wrong to the point where Milwaukee's defensive rating plummeted to 21st in the league at the time of his dismissal? Well, the truth is, it wasn't entirely Griffin's fault. He was dealt a tough hand, because when Coach Griff took the job, he was under the impression Jrue Holiday was his starting point guard, but just days before training camp, Jrue was sent away in a blockbuster that landed the Bucks' Damian Lillard. And as talented as Dame is, he's a severe defensive drop-off from Holiday. But it wasn't just Jrue. Milwaukee also lost one of the best screen navigating guards in the league in Grayson Allen to that trade as well. Meaning Griff went from an elite defensive backcourt of Jrue Holiday and Grayson Allen to a very flawed defensive backcourt in Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley mere weeks before the regular season, which essentially threw a wrench into Coach Griffin's entire defensive scheme, which emphasized heavy ball pressure, constant switching, and a ton of trapping out on the perimeter. Simply put, the Bucks just didn't have the personnel at the point of attack to make this type of scheme work. Malik Beasley was often tasked with the toughest perimeter defensive assignments, and that's just never been his game. Jay Crowder suggested that he could be the one to take on those types of assignments following his return from adductor surgery in mid-January, but all that he proved was that he was no longer the defensive stopper he once was, and it was clear that he lost a ton of agility at the point of attack. And as if matters couldn't get any worse, Griff's defensive scheme called for Brook Lopez to help trap and apply ball pressure out on the perimeter, where he's essentially useless as a defender. Opposing teams would simply attack the big man in the pick and roll, force him to trap away from the basket, and then take advantage of his lack of lateral quickness and the Bucks' lack of rim protection without BL down low to protect the basket. And the amount of holes in Griffin's scheme, combined with him losing the locker room, eventually got him fired. Under Doc Rivers, the defense did ever so slightly improve, but he couldn't really change a lot. Aside from the heavier usage of zone, they still relied on constant switching, and although Doc returned Brook Lopez to drop coverage, he would still have to chase three-point shooters out onto the perimeter. So in looking for a solution to these defensive woes, Doc turned to Greg Buckner, whom Rivers dubbed the Bucks defensive coordinator, and even went as far as to compare him to Tom Thibodeau for his gym rat-like mentality. And for good reason, because Coach Buck may have found the answer. During his time in Cleveland, Buckner coached a very similar team in terms of defensive makeup. An underwhelming defensive backcourt in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, a pretty solid point of attack defender on the wing in Isaac Okoro, or a serviceable one like Max Strus, and then 2 roaming rim protecting bigs in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Buckner took this unit and helped lead them to back-to-back top 7 appearances in defensive rating since Mitchell's arrival in 2022. So the only question is, how can he help the Bucks reach similar heights? Well, the ultimate goal of Buckner's scheme is to limit easy baskets at the rim, which is a similar approach to what Mike Budenholzer used to deploy, but it has some wrinkles. For starters, Coach Buck is encouraging his guards and wings to be extremely physical at the point of attack, which I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Milwaukee's personnel upgrades in that department, with the likes of Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., and DeLon Wright, all of whom are extremely handsy and physical, which is exactly what Buckner wants. But he's not just asking for that from them, he wants it from everyone on the perimeter. And the buy-in I've seen from Damian Lillard thus far during the preseason has me excited, as he's been extremely active on and off the ball, and while he can still have his defensive lapses, the good news is Coach Buck nips it in the butt right away with quick timeouts, which again goes back to his ability to make players buy in and hold them accountable. Anyways, getting back to the scheme, the reason Buckner wants his defenders to play aggressive at the point of attack isn't only to generate steals and transition opportunities, which we'll get to in a little bit, but it's also so that his perimeter defenders are willing to fight through screens, knowing they have help. Because on virtually every screen set during the preseason, on or off the ball, Bucks defenders fought through every screen, which makes their rim protectors in Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo so much more effective, because the idea is to funnel your man right into one of those two. And speaking of Giannis and Brook, the Bucks are going to make it a point to keep one of them at the rim at all times when they share the floor together. So if Brook sees Giannis defending higher up than normal, he has to find his way back toward the basket, and vice versa. Because if they don't and one of them misses a rotation, it throws everything off. For example, watch as Brook Lopez blocks Adama Sanogo out toward the perimeter. Freeze it. Giannis is then in the perfect position to protect the rim in Brook's absence. But instead of staying put, he tries to gamble for a steal against Julian Phillips, who beats him backdoor, forcing Taurean Prince to act as the weak side help defender. Phillips then pump fakes to get TP in the air, and although Giannis makes the recovery, he's a fraction of a second too late, and this is a goaltend. Resetting the play back to this point, Giannis should have just trusted Gary Trent Jr. to make the rotation to Julian Phillips, should the ball have went there. Because something Greg Buckner is trying to limit, in order to keep Brook and Giannis down low, is the amount of times they have to close out on perimeter shooters. Instead, he prefers his guards and wings to make the extra rotation over and contest the shot. But unlike the Mike Budenholzer days of flying out onto perimeter shooters to contest the shot, Coach Buck wants controlled but effective closeouts as to not allow dribble penetration. This leads us to the most important aspect of Buckner's defensive scheme: no middle drives. The idea is to limit the space the offense has to work with and use the sideline as an extra defender. Here's a great example of what Buck's looking for. Josh Giddey brings the ball up the floor, and Adama Sanogo flashes high as if he's about to set a screen. But just before he can do so, Taurean Prince ices Josh Giddey toward the sideline, while Damian Lillard tags Sanogo's roll, allowing Prince to funnel Giddey directly into Brook Lopez at the rim. And the Bucks deployed this strategy all throughout the preseason. Whenever the ball got toward the baseline, they'd ice the screen and tag the roll, which is honestly something Milwaukee didn't do enough of last season. And I'm not even talking about icing screens, because that wasn't necessarily a part of their game plan. I'm talking about tagging rollers. It just shows how messy the scheme was last year, and how there was an overall lack of communication on that end of the ball. So to recap, Greg Buckner's defensive scheme consists of taking away middle drives and forcing opposing teams toward the sideline, always having a rim protector down low, and guards and wings may have to rotate extra sometimes to ensure this. Guards and wings also need to play physical at the point of attack to create transition opportunities and prepare themselves to fight through screens. The team also needs to limit switching and control their closeouts. So moral of the story, protect the paint. The only ways I can see this type of scheme go haywire is if the communication on rotations is off and Milwaukee gives up a ton of threes, or the constant rotations causes players to lose their man and give up offensive rebounds, which honestly speaking was a struggle of the Bucks this preseason. So Doc Rivers has to make a point in the film room of locating a body in order to keep opposing teams off the offensive glass. But overall, I like the approach, and it gives the Bucks an actual defensive identity, one that they were clearly lacking last season. We'll just have to see how Greg Buckner continues to adjust. But with defensive schemes out of the way, let's take a look at how Doc Rivers will run the offense this season. because that's also gotten a bit of a revamp. But before I go any deeper, I just want to acknowledge the fact that Doc and the coaching staff have just started to install half-court sets into their offense as of October 14th. And beforehand, they were playing a read and react type of offense that featured simple concepts. And we got our first look at this on October 6th against Detroit, where aside from Damian Lillard's awesome first quarter explosion, we saw the Bucks run a 5-out offense that operated heavily out of delay with a high usage of dribble handoffs in the absence of Giannis, who didn't play. And when I say delay, I'm referring to a 5-out action that starts with a pass to a trailing big man at the top of the key. The most common wrinkle of this that the Bucks tried to get into started with the point guard either engaging in a DHO on the right wing or passing to the big in delay after crossing half court and screening away. From there, the big can either DHO back to the same side or DHO to the player coming off a pin down on the left wing. But for the most part, this was ineffective for players not named Damian Lillard, Bobby Portis, or Brook Lopez, because the Bucks' young bench struggled to create any sort of offense out of such a simplistic flow. But for the guys that did find some success, here's what I liked. In Bobby and Brook's case, they always saw the most success when screening for the point guard and then capitalizing off the gravity they generated by popping out for open threes. As for Dame, I liked this concept here. Taurean Prince grabs a long rebound and brings the ball up the right side of the floor. He then gives it up to Brook Lopez in delay, who fakes a DHO going left to Damian Lillard, and instead gives it back to Taurean Prince. Lopez then spaces to the corner, while Prince ends up being the one to DHO to Lillard, and after dumping the pass off to Dame, he sets this good hard screen here on Jaden Ivey to force a switch. And from that point, all Lillard needs to do is exploit this mismatch, which he does with plenty of space. This brings us to the Bucks' second game of the preseason on October 10th against the Los Angeles Lakers, where the approach changed a little bit. We still saw some delay concepts, but with Giannis Antetokounmpo back in action, the offense was more so catered to him. All throughout training camp, Doc Rivers preached the importance of Giannis rim running and getting down the floor as much as possible for easy transition opportunities. And if that wasn't available, the next best look for the offense was to get Giannis a post or elbow touch. And lo and behold, 16 of the Greek Freak's 20 points on the night came in transition. But we did see him work out of some delay action as well. Now, before we get into this film, I just want to preface this by saying the Bucks didn't score on any of these 3 possessions I'm about to show you. But the right idea was certainly there. First, starting with Milwaukee's very first offensive possession of the game, Dame goes DHO to the right with Taurean Prince, who pops up to the right wing and throws a pass to Brook Lopez in delay while Dame spaces in the corner. Giannis then comes and sets a back screen for Taurean Prince, who's going to empty to the weak side and allow Giannis to operate with all of this room from the elbow. Antetokounmpo puts the ball on the floor and gets a good look, he just can't convert. Similar concept here, as Dame again goes DHO to the right wing with Taurean Prince and spaces in the corner. TP again throws the delay pass and gets a back screen from Giannis to empty to the weak side, which once again isolates Giannis on the strong side elbow with Dame in the corner. But this time, the Greek Freak is going to engage Lillard by going DHO. The Lakers blitz Dame off the handoff, which frees up the Giannis slip, and Giannis has the right idea here trying to dump off to the cutting Brook Lopez, but Anthony Davis breaks this up at the last second. This last play I'm going to show you might be my favorite, and that's because Dame and Giannis' gravity in the two-man game created a wide open look for a teammate. Dame crosses half court here and immediately dishes to Giannis, who now acts as the delay big. Pat Connaughton then pops out from the corner and sets this cross screen for Dame. Lillard comes off and engages in dribble handoff with Giannis before instantly drawing 2 to the ball. But look at Giannis. He's slipping, which means LeBron has to tag his role, leaving Pat Connaughton wide open off the pop. And had this pass been a little lower, maybe he knocks this down. Which leads us to our final preseason game featuring the starters, October 14th against Chicago, where we kind of got a general idea of how the Bucks offense will flow. The main offense will run through Giannis, whether this be in transition or seeking out early post-up and elbow touch opportunities, while the ATOs, early game actions, sideline and baseline out of bounds plays will be more so catered towards Dame in order to get him going. For example, first play of the game, the Bucks are going to open with a split action, which is initiated by an entry pass to the post. Following the entry, the player that made the pass is then going to screen away to the next closest player. In this case, that's Gary Trent Jr. screening for Dame. Lillard is then going to come off with more than enough space after Chicago doubled the post, and to ensure he gets this look off, Giannis sets a little screen on Batum following the dump off, and Dame capitalizes on the light contest from Julian Phillips. Now here's a common ATO that Doc has used for Dame dating back to last season, where Lillard acts as the inbounder with the idea of getting the ball back. He throws into Giannis at the elbow and comes off this zoom action to get into a nice mid-range jumper. As for Giannis, he continued to dominate the game in transition and seek out early post-ups. Here's an ideal scenario that Doc Rivers is looking for if Giannis can't run straight to the rim in transition. The Bucks are pushing, and Dame is going to draw the Bulls center in transition, meaning Giannis has a mismatch. So the Greek Freak beats the Bulls defense down the floor before they can get set, posts the smaller Dalen Terry, and receives a pass over the top from Lillard for an easy 2. Now let's get into some early shot clock elbow touches. Gary Trent Jr. is going to set this ram screen for Giannis to flash to the free throw line while he relocates to the corner. Giannis then receives the entry from Lillard, bases, and attacks the smaller Buzelis to draw an easy foul. But if you run this play back, notice that Giannis also had a potential kick out open to Taurean Prince in the corner for 3, given how much help Josh Giddey is showing. The final play I'm going to show you is one that we've already touched on from the Lakers game, but the commonality suggests that it might be here to stay. Milwaukee opens their second half offense with Dame DHOing up the right side with Gary Trent Jr. Dame goes corner, while GTJ sends a delay pass to Brook Lopez near the top of the key. Giannis then back screens for Trent Jr., who empties to the weak side corner, giving Giannis the strong side elbow with only Dame in the corner. From here, Antetokounmpo takes 2 dribbles and fades into a nice fall-away jumper. So from an offensive standpoint, expect to see a lot more 5-out and delay within Milwaukee's system this season. Which brings us to our last point of discussion as we head into the 2024-25 season: the rotation. Many Bucks fans have speculated all summer which young player is going to step up and play a significant role this season. But if the preseason was any indicator, I don't think any of them are ready for that. And I'd even argue that some of the two-way guys are better equipped for the Bucks rotation. But that's another video for another day. The only young guy on Milwaukee's active 15-man roster that I could see maybe playing a consistent role is AJ Green. He's shown some decent flashes at the point of attack defensively, and is coming off a season in which he shot nearly 42% from deep on 3 attempts a night. Not to mention, Doc speaks extremely highly of him, and there's a reason he was pulled from the team's Summer League roster in Vegas this offseason. So if Green's truly the youngster to make the jump, he'll be the 10th man in a rotation featuring Lillard, Trent Jr., Middleton, Giannis, Lopez, Portis, Prince, Wright, and Connaughton. Could I maybe see Green take over Connaughton's role by the end of the season? Maybe, but Pat did have a pretty solid preseason. which is a welcome sign after coming off a down year. The only other critique to the rotation at this point is the role of Khris Middleton. Doc Rivers remains hopeful he'll be ready for opening night in Philly, and the team considers him day-to-day as he continues to rehab from a cleanup surgery on both ankles back in July. However, considering he's yet to take part in any of the Bucks' live portions during practice, I'd say that it's highly unlikely that Middleton is ready to go to start the season. So in the meantime, expect to see Taurean Prince continue to fill in alongside Dame, Gary, Giannis, and Brook in Milwaukee's starting lineup. But that's all I've got for today. Let me know what you expect from the Bucks this season down in the comments section below. Are they championship contenders or first round exits? Again, if you made it this far, consider checking out the new Antler Enthusiast membership on my channel and unlock unparalleled access to scouting reports for all 82 Bucks games this season. But for now, that's all I've got, and I'll see you in the next one.